The air at Davis-Monthan Air Force Base in Arizona shimmered with heat. It was a place where new jets came to fly and old jets came to die. The vast boneyard stretched for miles, a silent graveyard of metal birds. And in the middle of this, in a hangar that always smelled of oil and hot dust, lived the A-10 Warthog. It was not a pretty plane. It was a plane built for one job, to protect the men on the ground. It was thick, armored, and built around a giant 7-barrel cannon that fired 30mm shells. It was a flying tank, and Captain Maya Olsen loved it. Maya Kalsane Valkyrie was not what the other pilots expected. She was quiet, professional, and preferred her flight manuals to the loud talk in the officers' club. She was also the only female A-10 pilot in her squadron. This made her a target. The fast movers, the pilots of the sleek F-16s and the brand-new F-35s, saw themselves as knights of the sky. They saw Maya as a truck driver. Their leader, Major Rourke, was the worst. He was handsome, arrogant, and had a smile that never reached his eyes. He believed the A-10 was a relic, a waste of money that should have been retired with the dinosaurs. The tension came to a head in the main briefing room. The room was dark, the air cold. Rourke was at the front, clicking through a presentation on rapid deployment. "The key is speed and altitude," Rourke said, his voice smooth. "We get in, we drop our smart bombs from 30,000 feet, and we're home before the enemy even knows we were there. It's clean, it's surgical." He paused, a small smirk playing on his lips, and looked right at Maya, who was sitting in the back row. "Of course," he continued, "if we ever need to, mow the lawn, I suppose we can send in the Warthogs." A few of the F-16 pilots chuckled. It was a direct insult. He was calling her a gardener. Maya felt the blood rush to her face, but she held her composure. She had learned long ago not to show them her anger. She just stared back, her gaze level. Rourke wasn't done. He was enjoying the attention. "No offense, Captain Olsen. I know you ladies sometimes prefer a nice, slow ride, more time to enjoy the scenery." The room went quiet. The joke had crossed a line from professional rivalry to personal insult. Maya finally spoke, her voice not loud, but it cut through the cold air like a knife. "No offense taken, Major. Some of us just prefer to stay and finish the job." Rourke's smile faltered. He had expected her to be flustered, to be silent. He hadn't expected the steal. He quickly clicked to the next slide, his tone suddenly all business. Later that day, Maya was on the flight line, walking around her A-10. She ran her hand over the painted teeth on its nose. Her crew chief, Master Sergeant Sarge Masterson, was checking the cannon's loading mechanism. He was an older man with grease under his fingernails and eyes that had seen it all. "Don't let that windbag get to you, Cap," Sarge said, not looking up from his work. "He's all polish and no grit." "He's a major, Sarge," Maya said, her voice tired. "He's a pilot who's never been shot at," Sarge corrected her. "He talks about clean war. War ain't clean, it's mud and it's blood. He thinks this here is a relic." He patted the A-10's thick armor. "This relic was built to take a beating. It was built to fly home with one engine and half a wing, those pretty little jets of his. They take one bird's strike and they fall out of the sky like a wet napkin." He finally looked at her. "He talks about speed, but when you're a grunt on the ground with bad guys on the wire, you don't care about speed. You care about that." He pointed to the massive cannon. "You care about the angel on your shoulder. That's you, Captain. Don't you ever forget it." Maya gave him a small, grateful smile. Sarge was right. Her father, a helicopter pilot in Vietnam, had told her the same thing. "It's not about glory, Maya," he'd said. "It's about the guy you save. It's about bringing your brothers home." That night, Maya was in her small, plain quarters. She looked at a framed photo of her father standing next to his Huey. She was tired of the insults. She was tired of having to prove herself day after day. But she wasn't proving it for Rourke. She was proving it for the men she hadn't even met yet, the men who would one day be on the other end of her radio, desperate for help. The next morning, she got her new assignment. It came directly from Major Rourke. She and her wingman were assigned to routine reconnaissance over Sector Gamma, a supposedly quiet patch of desert and mountains. It was a milk run, a boring, pointless flight designed to keep her out of the way while Rourke and his Vipers practiced their high-altitude games. "Try to stay awake out there, Valkyrie," Rourke said at the assignment desk, loud enough for others to hear. Maya just took the flight plan, her face a mask of professionalism. "Yes, sir." But as she studied the maps of Sector Gamma, a cold feeling settled in her stomach. The winding canyons and deep valleys, They looked like the perfect place for an ambush. It was anything but quiet. It was a place to hide an army. The desert floor of Sector Gamma was a scarred, sun-baked maze. Maya Coulson Valkyrie flew her A-10 low, her wingman Deacon holding a position just off her right side. The sky was a pale, empty blue. Major Rourke had called this a milk run, but Maya's instincts were screaming. Her mission was to fly a grid pattern and sweep the area with her sensors. High-altitude satellites, the kind Rourke loved, had already declared this sector empty. They saw the tops of the flat mesas, but they couldn't see what was inside the deep, twisting canyons. Maya could. "Valkyrie to Deacon," she said, her voice calm over the radio. "I'm dropping down, stay up here and keep your eyes open. If anything paints you, you break hard." "Roger that, Valkyrie. You're going into the weeds," Deacon replied. Maya pushed the stick forward. The A-10 responded like a loyal dog, dipping its nose and descending into the mouth of a wide canyon. The stone walls rose up on either side of her, so close she could see the eagle's nests tucked into the high ledges. She was flying below the level of the rim. This was dangerous. This was A-10 flying. She throttled back, slowing the plane until it felt like she was just drifting on the hot air. She turned off her active radar, going passive. She was listening. She was watching. Her targeting pod, a high-tech camera system under her wing, scanned the canyon walls. And then she saw it. It wasn't much, just a patch of dirt that was a slightly different color. A set of fresh truck tracks leading up a narrow side canyon and disappearing under a rocky overhang. "Deacon, I've got something," she murmured. "Marking point Alpha." She followed the tracks. 2 miles later, she found the source. Tucked under a camouflage net hidden from the sky was a ZU-23, a twin-barreled anti-aircraft gun. It was manned. Her heat sensors showed 3 men sleeping beside it. This was no goat herder with a hunting rifle. This was a professional hidden air defense position. Maya kept flying. Her heart was beating a steady, heavy drum. She was no longer a pilot on a milk run. She was a hunter. For the next hour, she methodically, patiently, flew every canyon and ravine in her assigned sector. She found 2 more ZU-23s. She found a heavy machine gun nest. And most chilling of all, she found a small cave with a man standing outside it, holding a shoulder-fired missile launcher. A Stinger. These weapons were not there by accident. They were not defensive. They were placed in a perfect interlocking pattern. They were designed to trap and kill anything that flew into the valley. It was a flak trap. A box of death, waiting for someone to fly into it. "Valkyrie to Deacon," she said, her voice tight. "I'm coming up, we're done here. Maintain radio silence." She climbed out of the canyon, joining her wingman in the safe, empty sky. They flew back to Davis-Monthan in silence. When she landed, Maya bypassed the regular debrief. She went straight to the intelligence office. She spent 3 hours downloading her sensor footage, marking every position on a digital map and writing her report. She was precise. She listed every gun, every potential missile site, every truck track. She titled the report, "Warning, Heavy AA Presence in Sector Gamma. Sector is non-permissive. Recommend reclassification as high risk." She hand-delivered it to the command center. Major Rourke was there, laughing with 2 other F-16 pilots. When he saw her, his smile faded. "Well, if it isn't Captain Olson," he said. "Did you finish mowing the lawn?" "I'm filing my recon report, sir," Maya said, placing the folder on the main desk. "I found multiple heavy anti-aircraft positions in Sector Gamma. They're dug in and camouflaged. I've marked them all. That sector is hot." Rourke picked up the report. He glanced at the cover sheet. He glanced at Maya. Then he actually scoffed, a small, arrogant sound. "Captain," he said, speaking to her like a child, "we have multi-billion-dollar satellites that say that sector is empty. You were probably picking up heat from rocks or maybe a few farmers." "Sir, with respect, I have video of a ZU-23 and a man holding a Stinger." Rourke's eyes narrowed. She had challenged him. He tossed the report onto a side table, a table piled high with old manuals and coffee-stained papers. "I'm sure you do, Captain. Thank you for your detailed analysis. I'll look it over when I have time." He turned back to his friends. "She's seeing ghosts, probably just trying to make her boring flight sound important." Maya stood there for a second. He was dismissing her. He was burying her report. It was a report that could save lives. "Major," she said, her voice sharp, "I am formally stating that Sector Gamma is a fatal funnel. Sending any assets in there without taking out those guns is a suicide mission." Rourke's face turned red. "Are you done, Captain? Or would you like to tell me how to run my air wing? You're dismissed." Maya held his gaze. She had done her duty. She had filed her report. She gave him a sharp salute. "Yes, sir." She walked out. Rourke never even looked at the report again. 2 days passed. The sky turned a dark, bruised purple as a major storm system moved in. Then the alarms blared. It wasn't a drill. Maya ran to the command center. The room was in chaos. A young airman was yelling into a microphone. "I don't care, you have to get them on the line." The general, a stern man named Harris, was staring at the main map. How did this happen? Rourke was there, his face pale, his usual arrogance gone, replaced by a cold sweat. "Sir," Rourke said, his voice shaky. "It's Convoy Omega. They took a wrong turn in the storm. They're lost." "Where are they?" General Harris demanded. A red dot was blinking on the main screen. A red dot in a deep, winding valley. General Harris pointed. "What sector is that?" Rourke couldn't speak. He just stared at the map. Maya stepped forward, her voice cutting through the panic. "That's Sector Gamma, sir." The general's head snapped toward her. "They're pinned down," the radio operator shouted. "They're in a box canyon. They're taking heavy fire from the ridges, heavy fire." Rourke looked at Maya. He knew, and he knew that she knew. "Get me air support," General Harris roared. "Get me fighters in there now." "Sir," Rourke stammered. The ceiling is too low. My F-16s can't get a visual. The F-35s are too valuable to risk with the AAA in those canyons. It's a meat grinder." "What about that report?" the general said, his eyes scanning the room. "Who filed a report on that sector? I saw it on the log." A young aide scrambled to the pile of papers where Rourke had tossed Maya's report. He blew dust off it and handed it to the general. General Harris read the title, then the summary. His face turned to stone. He looked at Rourke, then at Maya. The radio crackled again. "Mayday, mayday, we have multiple casualties. They're on the ridges above us. We can't hold them there. They're walking mortars in on us. We need air. We need anything." "We can't send anyone in," Rourke said, his voice cracking. He was trying to save himself. "It's a non-permissive environment, sir. We have to pull back. We'll have to prep a rescue for the survivors, if there are any." The general looked sick, to write off a dozen soldiers. Then from the back of the room, Maya's voice. It was cold, clear, and absolute. "I can get in." Moment Maya spoke, the chaos in the command center froze. Every eye turned to her. General Harris stared at her, his face grim. Major Rourke, however, looked at her with pure disbelief. "Don't be ridiculous, Captain," Rourke snapped, his voice high-pitched. He was desperate to regain control. "You heard me. It's a meat grinder. That's suicide. Even for an A-10, you'd be a sitting duck. Those ridges are lined with guns." "Yes, Major, they are," Maya said, stepping forward. She pointed to the digital map, which was still blank. "But I know where they are. Your satellites can't see them, but I can." She walked to a terminal, plugged in her flight data, and in an instant the map of Sector Gamma lit up with red icons. "There," she said, pointing. "A ZU-23 here, a heavy machine gun here, and the Stinger right there in that cave. They are all aimed at the sky above the canyon. They're expecting jets to fly over. They are not expecting one to fly inside it." She turned to General Harris. "Your intel is wrong, sir. Mine is from 48 hours ago, and it's from my own eyes. I won't be flying blind. I can get under the weather. I can get under their guns." The general looked from Rourke's pale, sweaty face to Maya's calm, focused expression. He looked at her map, filled with targets. Then he looked at the blinking red dot of the trapped convoy. The radio was silent now, which was worse than the screaming. "This is an unauthorized level risk, Captain," the general said, his voice low. "Those are our people, sir," Maya replied. "The A-10 was built for this. It was built for this exact mission. Let me go." Rourke started to protest again. "Sir, if we lose a plane, if she's captured." General Harris cut him off. "You've said enough, Major." He turned back to Maya. He saw no fear in her. He saw no hunger for glory. He saw a professional ready to do her job. "One plane," the general said. "I can't authorize a wingman. It's too tight in that canyon. You get in, you hit those guns, and you get that convoy a window. You get out. That is an order. Godspeed, Captain Olson." "Yes, sir," Maya said. She turned and walked out without a glance back. As the door swung shut, she heard Rourke mutter to another pilot, "She's dead. She'll be dead in 10 minutes. She's just trying to be a martyr." The walk to the flight line was the longest of her life. The storm had broken. A cold, driving rain was lashing the tarmac. The wind howled. It was a terrible night to fly. But as she entered the hangar, she saw her A-10, War Pig, was already waiting. Her crew chief, Sarge Masterson, was there. He wasn't supposed to be. His shift had ended hours ago. He was standing by the cockpit, a thermos of coffee in his hand. He already had her plane loaded, not with training rounds. It was loaded for war. The 30-millimeter cannon's drum was full, with 1,150 rounds of high-explosive incendiary. There were Maverick missiles and pods of rockets under the wings. Sarge knew. He must have heard it on the command net. "Heard you're going into that hornet's nest, Cap," he said, his voice quiet. "I am," Maya said, pulling on her flight suit. "Heard they're calling it a suicide run." "That's what they're calling it," she said, her voice muffled as she pulled the suit up. Sarge nodded slowly. He looked at the plane, then at her. "Well," he said, "they're wrong." He tapped the side of the cockpit right below the canopy. It was a thick gray plate. "This here," he said, "is the titanium bathtub. It's an armored shell that wraps all the way around you. You could fly this plane through a brick wall and keep going. This old girl, she's not a racehorse. She's a mule. She's stubborn. And she was built to bring her pilot home." He handed her the thermos. "You ain't no martyr, Captain. You're a protector. Now you go show 'em what that gun is for." Maya took the thermos and drank the hot, black coffee. It burned and it felt good. She looked at the old man, his face lined with a lifetime of service. He was the only one on the base who believed in her. "Thank you, Sarge," she said. She climbed the ladder and settled into the cockpit. The bathtub felt solid around her. She wasn't just in the plane, she was part of it. She put on her helmet, sealed her mask, and began the startup sequence. One by one, the systems came online. The twin engines behind her spooled up with a deep, hungry whine. "This is Valkyrie," she said over the radio, her voice filtered metallic. "Requesting taxi to active." The control tower was silent for a beat. The airman on duty knew where she was going. "Valkyrie Tower, you are clear to taxi. Wind is 250 at 30 knots. Good luck, Captain. Godspeed." She pushed the throttle. The heavy plane began to move, rolling out into the rain and the dark. In the command center, her IFF, Identify Friend or Foe marker, lit up on the main screen. A single green dot, moving toward the dark patch of mountains labeled Sector Gamma. Rourke was watching, his arms crossed, a smug, sick look on his face. He was already planning how he would write the after-action report, how he would blame Maya for her reckless behavior. 5 minutes, he whispered to the man beside him. "She won't last 5 minutes." Maya flew low, hugging the desert floor to stay under the enemy radar. The rain hammered her canopy. The wind tried to push her plane around, but the A-10 was too heavy. It just plowed through the air. She was 10 miles out, 5 miles. She was at the mouth of the canyon. She took a deep breath. She could hear the desperate calls from the convoy on the guard frequency. "Taking fire from all sides. We have 2 men down, 2 men down." Maya flipped her master arm switch on. Her weapons were now hot. The head-up display in front of her face glowed green. She keyed her radio, not to the command center, but to the convoy's frequency. Her voice cut through their panic, calm as ice. "Omega-1, this is Valkyrie. I am fencing in. I am 5 miles from your position. Pop green smoke. I am coming to work." Box Canyon was a pit of darkness and echoing gunfire. The men of Convoy Omega were huddled behind their ruined vehicles, the crack of enemy bullets snapping over their heads. Mortar rounds were exploding closer and closer. They were trapped. They were dying. "I don't see any green smoke," the convoy commander, a young captain, yelled into his radio. "Valkyrie, I can't see the sky." "I don't need to see the sky," Maya's voice came back, startlingly clear over the noise. "I'm already in the canyon. Look north." The commander peeked over the hood of his Humvee, and he saw it, a dark shape moving impossibly fast below the level of the ridgeline. It had landing lights on, cutting through the rain. It was the ugliest, most beautiful thing he had ever seen. "I see you, Valkyrie, I see you. The enemy is on the North Ridge, all along the North Ridge." "Roger, Omega," Maya said. "I see 'em." In the command center, all they could hear was the convoy's radio feed. Rourke was shaking his head. "She's flying with her lights on. She's insane. They'll kill her." Maya saw it all. Her targeting pod, switching to infrared, saw the hotspots on the ridge. The guns, the men, exactly where she had mapped them. They were all firing down into the canyon at the convoy. They had no idea she was behind them. She climbed just enough to clear the canyon rim. "Guns, guns, guns," she whispered. Tracers erupted. The sky filled with red lines, all aimed at her. The enemy had seen her. They were panicking, turning their weapons. "She's too low, she's too slow," Rourke shouted in the command center. Maya ignored the fire. Her plane shuddered as bullets pinged off the titanium armor. Plink, 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 it sounded like pebbles. She lined up her first target, the ZU-23, the biggest threat. Her thumb moved to the red button on her control stick. The pickle. "Engaging," she said. She pressed the button. The sound was not a pew-pew-pew. It was a brrrrrrt. A sound that tore the sky apart. It was a roar, a volcanic eruption of noise. The entire A-10 vibrated violently as the GAU-8 Avenger cannon unleashed hell. It was firing 65 rounds a second. Milk bottle-sized shells made of depleted uranium slammed into the enemy position. In the command center, the sound was so loud it overloaded the radio, turning into a crackling, terrifying static. The ZU-23, the truck, and the men around it simply vanished. They were gone, replaced by a cloud of dust and fire. "Target 1 destroyed," Maya said, her voice perfectly calm. She banked the A-10 hard, the heavy plane groaning in protest. She pulled G's that would have stalled a faster jet. A missile streaked past her cockpit, a white line in the dark. "Missile 9 o'clock," the convoy commander screamed. "I see it," Maya said. She was already dropping flares, bright magnesium bursts that tricked the missile's heat-seeking eye. The missile exploded harmlessly against the canyon wall. She was already lining up her next shot, the heavy machine gun nest that was pinning down the convoy's medic. "Second target, East Ridge, engaging." Brrrrrrt. The sound came again, the sound of fury. The machine gun nest was shredded. The convoy commander, his mouth open, watched from below. They're running," he whispered into his radio. "My God, they're running, she's right on top of them." "They can run," Maya said. "I'm not done." She saw the flash from the cave, the stinger, the man she had seen 2 days before. He was firing at her. "Missile front." She had no time to dodge. The missile slammed into her right engine. The plane lurched, throwing her against her straps. A fire warning light blared in the cockpit. An automated voice began repeating, "Engine 1, fire. Engine 1, fire." In the command center, they heard the explosion. Rourke's face went white. She's hit. She's got to eject. Valkyrie, eject, eject." General Harris gripped the table. "Quiet, Major." Maya fought the controls. The plane wanted to roll over and die. She was flying a 1-engine, 10-ton brick, but the A-10 was still flying. "Negative," Maya said, her voice strained as she wrestled with the stick. "Engine 1 is out, but she's still in the air. I'm not done." She was trailing black smoke. She was a wounded animal, but she was an angry, wounded animal. She turned the plane. She was going back in. "Captain, you are ordered to return to base," General Harris shouted. "One more pass, sir," Maya said. She knew she couldn't climb out of the canyon, not with 1 engine and all that weight. She had to shed the weight. She targeted the main mortar pit, the one that had been doing the most damage to the convoy. "Omega 1, she called, her voice tight. "Get your heads down, this is danger close." She pickled her remaining weapons, her rockets and her last 2 Maverick missiles. She unleashed everything she had left. The entire ridge erupted in a chain of secondary explosions. Fire and smoke boiled into the night sky. And then silence. The gunfire stopped, the mortars stopped. The only sounds in the valley were the rain and the whump-whump-whump of Maya's one good engine fighting to keep her alive. The radio crackled. It was the convoy commander. His voice was shaking. Valkyrie, are you there? The area is secure. They're gone, all of them. They're all gone." He paused, his breathing heavy. Holy Mary, what did you do?" Maya finally turned her plane toward the canyon mouth. It was a slow, painful turn. She was fighting for every inch of altitude. I'm heading home, Omega," she said, her voice finally showing the exhaustion she felt. "Tell Sarge to have the coffee ready." Her green dot on the command center screen, which had been circling like a shark, turned. It was moving slowly, painfully back toward the base. The base was on high alert. The storm was at its peak. Crash crews, fire trucks, and ambulances lined the main runway, their lights cutting red and white flashes through the driving rain. In the command center, no one spoke. They just watched the single green dot, Valkyrie, crawl across the map. It was moving too slowly. It was losing altitude. "She's not going to make it," a young airman whispered. "She's too heavy, she's too damaged." Major Rourke stood in the corner, his face ashen. The smugness was gone. The arrogance had been burned away by the sound of Maya's cannon. He had been a pilot who talked about clean war. He had just heard what a real war sounded in. "Come on, Captain," General Harris said, his voice just above a whisper. "Come on, Olson, bring it home." Then they saw it. The A-10 broke through the clouds. It was a wreck. It was not a plane anymore. It was a testament to survival. The right engine was a blackened, gaping hole. The tail was shot to pieces, looking like Swiss cheese. The right wing was full of holes, and it was still flying. "My God," Rourke whispered, "it's still flying." Maya fought the plane all the way down. Her landing gear was damaged. It only partially deployed. She knew this would not be a soft landing. "Valkyrie to tower," she said, her voice exhausted. "I'm coming in. Gear is unsecured. I'll be landing hot." She hit the runway. The impact was violent. The plane skidded on its belly, the damaged gear collapsing. Sparks flew in a 30-foot rooster tail as the titanium bathtub armor scraped against the concrete. The plane veered, skidding sideways, but Maya used her one good engine and her rudders to keep it straight. It finally screeched to a halt, surrounded by the flashing lights of the crashed trucks. For a full minute there was silence. Then the canopy opened. Maya just sat there for a moment, the rain hitting her face. She was shaking, the adrenaline finally leaving her. Sarge Masterson was the first one there. He ran past the fire crews and climbed up the emergency ladder. He looked at her, then at the smoking, ruined plane around her. The armor was peppered with hundreds of bullet impacts. "Heard you got her a little muddy, Cap," Sarge said, his voice thick. Maya just nodded, too tired to speak. He unbuckled her harness and helped her stand up. When she climbed down the ladder, her legs almost gave out. Sarge caught her. She stood on the tarmac, soaked and covered in sweat, and looked at what was left of her plane. General Harris was walking toward her, and behind him, walking slow, was Major Rourke. The general's speakerphone was on. It was the voice of the convoy commander, patched through from the field hospital where they were airlifting his wounded. "Sir," the voice said, "I'm looking at the ridge. I don't know what she did. It's gone. There's nothing left. She saved us all 12 of us. She flew through hell. She flew right through it." The general disconnected the call. He stopped in front of Maya. He looked at her, then at Rourke. His voice was ice. "Major," the general said, "it seems Captain Olson's ghosts were very real. Her recon report, the one you dismissed, the one you buried, it was perfect." Rourke started to stammer. "Sir, the intel it was." "The intel was wrong," General Harris roared, his voice booming over the wind. "Your intel was wrong, your arrogance was wrong, but hers wasn't." He turned to Maya. "You filed a report, Captain, you warned him." Maya finally looked at Rourke. She wasn't angry anymore, she just looked tired. "You didn't read it, Major. You saw A-10 and you saw my name and you didn't even read it. Those men, they almost died because you didn't read it." This was the twist. The mission was only suicide because Rourke's pride had made it that way. His mockery was a cover for his own failure. "Major Rourke," the general said, his voice final, "you are relieved of your command pending a full inquiry. You put those men at risk. You ignored direct, actionable intelligence. Your career is over." Rourke's face crumpled. He didn't say a word. 2 air police officers who had been standing by moved in and quietly escorted him off the flight line. The tarmac was quiet except for the rain. The other pilots, the F-16 fast movers who had laughed at her in the briefing room, were standing at the edge of the hangar. They were watching. They weren't laughing now. One of them, a young captain, stepped forward. He looked at Maya at the ruined Warthog, and he rendered a sharp, perfect salute. Then another pilot saluted, and another. Maya didn't want a parade. She just wanted to sleep. She looked at General Harris. "Permission to be dismissed, sir." The general's hard face softened. "Permission granted, Captain. Go get some rest." Maya nodded. She didn't walk toward the debriefing room. She walked back to her battered A-10. She placed her hand on the nosart, the war pig. It was covered in soot and hydraulic fluid. Sarge walked up and handed her a fresh thermos of coffee. "She'll fly again, Cap," he said quietly. I know she will, Sarge, Maya said. So will I. The narration would end here, with a final, powerful thought. They had thought her mission was suicide. They thought her plane was a relic and that her place was on the ground. But in that valley under that dark and stormy sky, they learned what true fury was. It wasn't the sound of a sleek jet engine. It was the roar of the Warthog's gun and the unbreakable will of the woman who flew it. Respect is not given. Maya Olsen had just taken it.